Okay, so let's start at the top. Welcome to everybody. We have about 50 in our group right now. I think the fact that the COVID umbrella is starting to lift, or COVID curtain is starting to lift a little bit, and we're getting some nice weather and people have cottages and camping. We're going to see fewer people join us perhaps during the summer months, but I think we'll just keep marching ahead. And for those that miss things, Murray's been good enough to put these videos up on YouTube. And of course, we'll revisit anything that anybody wants to talk a little bit more about. Murray, do you want to say a few words, reminders about Zoom and how to deal with this?
Yes, I'd like to say that first off, down at the bottom, if you put your mouse on your screen, the sheet see where Mark's discussion word is, you see the word chat come up.
Yeah.
What will happen, what would help us if you click on that, and it'll come up the right-hand side, type your name in there. And also I'm finding that if you could type your email address beside your name, and also type your telephone number in. If we run into a problem with Zoom, which is happening sometimes, we can get a hold of you directly to tell you what's happening that night. So it's just a matter of typing in your name under the word chat, as well as the email address that you go by, and also the telephone number. The other thing that's helpful for us when somebody's presenting, if you would also mute your mic, and that is down the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see a little microphone with the word mute below it. If you click on that, it will mute your sound in case, and myself, I've got a cough right now. I have to do that. And so I just would cut it out. And if you have to go away from the screen, you can also start or stop the video by clicking on the camera that's just right to it. It doesn't affect what we're doing on our program. It just takes your face away. And then the other thing that I'm sharing with you, if you'd like to comment later on when that opportunity comes, if you push the space bar, which you're on a PC, I think it's the same on Apple and Mac, you hit the space bar, that unmutes you. So the other part of it, just to say, we enjoy the time together, but courtesy is very important. If you want to tell your wife that you don't like what's happening, mute. So we don't hear you telling that.
Yeah.
We've had some funny things.
If you want to tell me you don't like what's happening, you can mute that too.
Oh, no, not again. Mark's still on the same thing. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So the muting is a really important button. Otherwise, we're ready to go, I think. And if anything else, a comment or questions about the Zoom, be free to ask me right now.
Okay, I can't find where you plug that in. I have an iPad.
Okay, if you finger over your iPad, you'll see a stream. The one button to look for is share screen. You see that little green thing when you touch the screen?
Oh, share content?
Yeah, so don't want to do that. You want to go next to it. I think the word chat is beside that, even on your machine. You see C-H-A-T, the chat, français.
Not on the iPad.
No, it's not there.
On the iPad
No.
is three dots.
3 dots in the upper right.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
3 dots upper right, then you say the word chat will probably
Then you
be there.
see chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Is everybody connected then? Ready to go?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Ta-da!
Okay, thank you.
You're on, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Murray. Okay, so one of the first things we wanted to do on the agenda was just to open it up for any questions. So if anybody's been working on anything and had a question or wanted us to very quickly review just in a few minutes, anything that you've heard us say before, we've discussed before, now's the time to just open it up. Okay, so let's take a few minutes and do that.
Pretty quiet.
I guess when you start talking about carving heads, you're going to be getting into the subject of expressions and stuff like that when you get into it.
Yeah, eventually we will. Yep. Let's get the basics. Okay. We'll start off.
Yeah. All right.
I want to say thank you to Murray for the inclusion of things that we talked about in the magazine. I certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, John, do you want to start with going through carving the head, or do you want me to finish up the painting discussion?
Okay, I'll start it up now.
Okay, so
Okay.
you can share your screen, I guess.
Okay. Do I say put share content? Can you see Mike? Can you see mine?
I can't yet. Well, I can see, but it's. Oh, you're just using your overhead camera, aren't you?
Yeah, for now I am. Yeah,
Okay.
I was
so,
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see your hand waving. So
Okay.
for everybody, if you're like me looking at everybody's face right now, if you go to John's overhead camera, there's 3 little dots there, and if you hit pin, then John's will take over your screen and you'll see it nice and big. Everybody understand that okay?
Okay, we're all good. We all good to go, Mark?
Everybody ready?
We're there.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to start up by doing 3 different heads, different techniques how to do a head, and they all come down to one. I'll explain, but they all come down to one point, which is like, let's start with this one. This is like a Lynn Daughtery head. You start with a blank, or blank. You cut that out, and then first thing a lot of people do is they start doing the detail before you start doing the major work. You do all the roundness. So people will start, and I see a lot, is start not putting the ears in, or just start right away putting detail in this thing. You can't. You got to bring this to a point, so you can put this, put the ears in. You get the roundness of the head, the shape of the head, and this has always got to come to a point where your nose is. So start it out like this, and put a center line in, and bring that corner. It'll do the ears, but you always bring that corner to the middle where the nose is, where the highest point of your face. So then so it comes down to like this. Once the detail's in, we always start it out. I always bring it to a point first. Don't start the detail till you got this all in. All the ears are in, the roundness of the head. So that's one style. And
Hey,
the other
John,
stuff. Yep.
you see the block you have with the center line drawn in it?
Yeah.
That was the center of your camera.
Center of
Okay.
the camera.
Yeah, that was the center of what we're viewing here, just so you know. Everything you've been showing us is a little bit off to the right, okay?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So where you have your 2 heads on the left, John?
Yeah.
Where you have your 2, they have to come to the right.
Is it okay now?
Your hand is in the center of the view now, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's just one style. And where the style is, the next style is where you cut the shape of the face, do the silhouette. It's the same thing. You got to do your center line and round that off to the front of the face. Where is it now? Where's the other one? Oh, here it is. Where it comes into this. But you got to shape that. You got to cut that wood and put the ears in and round that all off. Round that off before you start putting detail in, like this one. But that's the silhouette of that one. What the big point is, though, what I'm trying to say is, that you have to bring this into a point. Otherwise, you won't get no depth in your, that's is really blocky. You get no depth in your nose, in your face. And the third is just where is it here? Yeah, 2x2, a little block of wood, and you're going to carve from the corner. So you got to find out which corner has a strength. Like the grain will go this way, and the grain will go this way. So you want to put it on where the grain is going this way. That's where your nose is going to be, this side or this side. So then you shape it. You already got the corner, you already got the nose, you already got the pointed of the nose. And then you put your ears in where the ears are going to be. Oops. I'm going to draw some lines where your ears are going to be. And start rounding off the top of the head, where the head's going to be. And the jawline. But you always got to bring it to a point. Then I can start carving. Then I can start putting the detail of the nose in. And then you end up with something like this. That's from a corner. But if you don't put that, if you don't go to that point right away at first, it'll always be flat. You won't have that depth in your face, in your features.
Yeah, I think you know what, like the takeaway from that, John, is like if you just hold that sideways again, if you look at the eyeball and the wrinkles around the eyelid, it's significantly back from the tip of the nose. It's even significantly back from the bridge of the nose, the top part of the nose. And often you'll see, if you look back at some of your earlier carvings, when you didn't do that initial wedge look at the front, the eyes are probably on the same plane as the bridge of the nose. And the only way to deal with that is to do exactly what John described, is to start with either the wedge shape or make yourself a wedge shape so that you have no choice but to put the eyes further back than the bridge of the nose.
I've noticed in a lot of the carvings, the eyes are flat. The eye is in the side of the head. So you got to have half your eye. It should be in the side of your head. If you look at your wife's head or your wife's face or your husband's whatever, you look at the side profile, you'll see the eye, half the eye is in the side of the head. You want depth in your carving.
And that'll occur naturally, John, as John's saying, because you started off by making that block of wood angled back like that. So you have no choice but to now carve your eye in that fashion. You can't carve a flat eye on something that's, you know, going back 40 degrees or 45 degrees.
Yeah, like this here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other half of the eye will be back here.
Yeah.
Hey,
But,
John.
Yep.
John, this is Firdaus. Just have a question about the
Yep.
neck. How do you size the neck, and what size? How do you do you use a drill bit, a specific size drill bit to drill in the body of the garden?
No, I don't use it. I usually about a ½ inch. Like I don't know what this is. It's probably about a ½ inch. But depending on the size of the head, it all depends. If you want to make a skinny neck or a wider neck, it could be 3/4 of an inch.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it all it's different. It's all whatever is what you're trying to get. You want to heavier head or a skinnier head or face, whatever, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so that's the main point I'm trying to make is try to get some depth in your carvings. You know, you'll see, I don't know if I have any old ones, but the original ones. Oh yeah, I got one. Here's a Santa Claus I did many moons ago. Look how flat he is. Look how flat the face is. Like it's just, you can't even see his nose. Like it's very flat. That's just probably 20 some years ago, at least minimum. But this one's pretty flat compared to, you know, get some depth. Big difference, eh?
Mhm.
And by this guy here, this one here, I started with a drawing. So that's what he is. I started with a drawing, the side profile in the front. And then I made this guy. I made him a little bit different, but pretty close. But that's how I start these. That's how I start carving caricature faces. It all depends what look I want. Is do I want to do like a Lynn Dotery type head, or a one that looks like something, like if you're going to do somebody's face, like a family member or whatever, you got to get a side profile. You need the side profile to get all the depth of the nose and how big the nose is going to be, and the jawline, where the mouth is. Like everybody's mouth is different. It could be higher, like more like a higher bite or thicker bite, or overbite, I guess you'd call it too. Or the size of ears, you might have big ears, you might have small ears. So if you're going to do something that looks like somebody, going to carve something that looks like somebody, you got to have a side profile. Any questions? Pretty quiet crowd.
Yeah, maybe a couple things I'd just add, John.
Yeah.
So the way that that I do my the heads of my caricature carvings is the one that John's holding right now. So it starts with a block of wood, and your first step is to take it down to what John was holding in his which is in the middle now, right?
Yeah.
That's the first step, and I find that that is a fellow by the name of Lynn Dowdy, an exceptional carver. That's the way he does his carvings. I like roughing in the carving that way because it just leaves it wide open as to what you can do with the face. A couple of things I'll just emphasize that John's already said about this one is that starting with that block of wood and then getting it down to that wedge shape that John's holding in his right hand, the tips of the ears are the outside of that block of wood. Okay. And so you're drawing on that block of wood where the back of that ear is going to be. There's still going to be some head behind it, some hair.
Yeah.
But the back of the ear is what you want to draw and make sure you don't cut off. And then you go from the back of that ear to that center line that John described and make a nice, it's not quite a wedge shape, is it, John? It's more of a rounded wedge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not perfectly square. Like it's not.
No. You want a little bit of cheek left there, to play with, right?
Yeah.
But the view John's showing us right there, you can see by doing that, you automatically get those great big car door ears sticking out, right?
That's right.
And that's what caricature carving is all about, is really exaggerating things. And one of the things that you really want to exaggerate is the ear. So if you start at the back of the ear is touching each side of that initial block, and that the center point is coming almost to a fine line. I like what John's done there, because he's given you the ability now to have a little bit of a bulbous nose, you know, because he's got a little flat section there instead of just a real crisp center line. It gives
Yeah.
you the opportunity to make a bulbous nose if you want to.
If you want a pointy nose, you just sharpen that up a bit to get a pointy nose, or you want a wider nose, just
Yeah.
leave that space wider,
Yeah.
like Mark was saying.
I have a question. Is
Yep.
that one, is that not, the one you're holding now, is it done at the corner of the wood too, or is that,
No, that's just like this. That was like that.
okay,
Well,
okay, thank you.
So you can see, you know, if you turn that block to the side again, John, to show your pencil drawings, the first thing John did was cut in the ear. Okay, and then he cut in that ear. He made sure he didn't cut off the back end of the ear, but got the thing wedged down towards the nose. And then as he carved, he was able to carve around the back of the ear, start relieving for the head where the hair would go, relieving at the top where the top is domed. And I think you left the jaw fairly square, didn't you, John? You made
yeah, kind of flat. Yeah.
You may have taken a little bit off underneath the jawline just to relieve that. But
Yeah.
you know what I'd suggest to the group here, and I'm only suggesting this because this is the way I happen to do it. But if everybody takes a few blocks of wood in the next week or two and just go that far, you'll learn more about carving a caricature head than you ever imagined. Because this, as John started off, is the key to making a good caricature. Is you don't want, at the end of the day, you're carving your head to look like what John's holding in his right hand, just the square
Yeah.
thing.
You don't want this either.
Yeah. And so if you can get from that block of wood to that wedge-shaped thing with the car door ears sticking out the side,
Yeah.
you've come a long way to carving a caricature head.
You got a good
Show us
base.
that head again.
Beg your pardon?
Yeah, I just want him to show us that head again so I can get a good screenshot.
Oh, this one? You want this one?
Yeah, yep, you got it.
Okay.
What about the neck? I noticed that the one on your left hand, the neck, it goes back on an angle. The one on your right hand, the neck kind of comes straight down. Does it make a difference? Which is a better way to do it?
No, it's either way, but if you wanted the head, like if you got the body, let's see if I got a body here. If you want to position the body or the head looking more forward, you'd have the neck going on a bit of an angle. But if you wanted it straight up and down, you'd have it straight in like that. It all depends what look you want you're going for.
Could I add another comment to that, John?
Yep.
One of the things that you can get away with because you're doing the head separately, and I think this is what I understood Furtis's question to be, was when you drill the hole into the body to accept the neck.
Yeah.
You know, you can make that as sloppy as you want. You know, I think, John, you said take a 1/2-inch drill. I'll start like with a smaller drill and build up so I don't split the wood, but I'll drill down maybe a 1/2 inch, and then I'll take my drill and I'll just rotate it around so that hole really ends up being like this, not a straight hole down. Okay?
Right.
And then as John showed you, that one with the neck being trimmed down, you know, you're not going to see the bottom of that neck. So if the neck is, I don't know, 1.5 inches, you can bring it to a point. Nobody's going to see it. And now you're putting it in an oversized hole. You can position that head anywhere you want. And that's really the beauty of doing it this way. Because what I always find is I've done a caricature. I may have done a clay model or a drawing, and I have a sense of what I'm after. But it's not until you get the head on that the thing takes on a caricature. And maybe you're going to want that head, you know, tilted to the side a bit and down or up and looking this way. And if it's a little bit sloppy, you're going to be able to glue it in there wherever you want it eventually. But you can move that around until you're satisfied where it's going to go. The other thing to remember is, like, even when you're looking at me in my shirt here, my neck is nowhere near my shirt. collar, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I can put 2 fingers around here, and your caricature carving should be the same. So, you know, you've drilled that hole in the body. You've got this thing in there now. You're going to be carving the body down to have a bit of a collar and a shoulder. There's going to be a gap between the top of the neck there you go, the top of the neck and inside the shirt, you know, so you have a lot of freedom now to play with it, shave that neck down to a point to whatever you want, and just fit it in, turn it around, give it room between the shirt and the neck, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, like just by looking at it like this right now, if I turn his head this way, it's a different attitude. But then you turn his head this way a little bit, it gives me a whole different attitude.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, looking at you, you know, what's your problem? Or you go straight on and, hey, what's up? How you doing? You know?
Yeah.
But
And you can even trim that neck down more, right, John? And
oh
then
yeah,
you sloppier, and you could move the head up or down, you know?
This is not the body for it, just the body. I have an old body, but he's got his hand here, and you know, he's giving some attitude, or you can have it turned right over, you know.
Yeah, what we're not trying to do using this is making a tight fitting dowel in a hole. We're not trying to We're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to make something fairly sloppy, the neck, in a hole that's not too oversized, but gives you the freedom to move it around.
But with this style, you're, like Mark was saying last time, you don't really know what you're going to get until you can't say if you want to do meat, for instance, you wanted to carve meat. Doing it this way, it's going to be pretty hard to get an accurate carving, an accurate of that person. By doing this silhouette, you're going to know exactly what that person looks like. Like you look at your wife tonight, go look at your wife, give her a side, like look at her face like this, then look at her or husband, and look at their side profile. It's pretty amazing. You can't tell what their face looks like just by the side profile, but you can look at both the combination, you'll get the look of that person. So when you're doing this one, you're guessing, you're putting in mustaches or smiles or whatever. But it's good, it's exciting too, because it's revealing itself right in front of you. Like this carving, like I'll, you know, if I change the mustache or take the mustache off, you know, it's
just hold them up
fun.
a little more. Just hold them up a little higher, John. There we go. No, to your paper. It was just not in the center of your thing.
Oh.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, it's fun too to not know what you're getting into. It's exciting because then it's revealing itself to you as you're carving. You know, it's not, there's no pressure. Like if I had to, this is supposed to be me. And if it didn't look like me, then I'd be like, oh shit, I didn't do a good job. I got to do it over again. But this way, whatever it is, if I want a beard, a mustache, or whatever, right? Big eyes, small eyes, you just add it in. It's exciting to do it this way too. This is a little more pressure. It has to look like somebody.
Yeah.
Just a word of caution here I'd suggest to everybody is that look at your spouse and see what he or she looks like, but don't dare try to carve them.
Yeah.
And if she turns out looking like that, you better move.
Oh, then you're going to get the look.
Oh yeah.
Did you go over again how you orient the grain when you first start?
On the 1 inch dowel, or the 1 inch. All right, this is 2x2. Sorry.
No, the first one you did with the head on the.
Oh, this one. This one.
Yes.
Grain's
Well,
going up and down.
Yeah, grain's going up and down.
So from the top of the neck, or from the bottom of the neck to the top of the head.
Yeah. I know you can't see the grain very good, but it's going this way. But this one, on when you're doing it from the corner, you got to look for the grain. If it's going this way,
You got to get that in the center of the picture, John, so we can see it. There we go.
if you're going this way, the grain, that nose will break off. So it's on this end. You can't do it on this side. The grain is going this way, on this corner. So you got to start the face on either side. One of this, but this side, your grain is too short. You'll break off the nose. If
Okay, thank you.
If you're going to do it from the corner. Like I got one. This is from the corner here.
Mhm.
Or where's the other guy? Here. That's from the corner. We can see the bottom. Yeah, rounded off now, but that was the corner of the nose. Is the same as that one. It's the same as the foot. So, any more questions?
That's good, thank you.
Yep.
John, do you do most of your carvings like with the head separate?
Yeah, not all of them, but like this one's not. From the corner, I don't do it separately. But it all depends if you want like attitude, like I was saying, attitude or a certain look that they're looking way over there. It seems like a lot of waste if I'm doing all one piece and I got to turn the head. It's a lot of work. I find it a lot easier by doing it separately and then turning the head, whatever attitude I want, looking up or down, whatever, right? Or down. It's a lot easier.
Okay.
There's
Is there any special glue that you use when you put the neck in the body?
No, I just use wood glue, just normal wood glue. Like when Mark was saying about the putting the head on the body, like that neck is going this way. So it's quite the attitude. If he had his head turned a bit and this body was on, it's good. You can see it all, but
Just a suggestion here too for you're doing an old man and probably an old woman also. That's when the shoulders are humped over, the neck goes on that angle like John's got in front of us there.
Yeah,
it mounts into the body that way. But a young person doesn't stand that way; they stand upright.
Yeah. That's why you go into malls or something like that and do people watching. And I love it. I love watching how, like I was saying before, going to a doctor's appointment and stuff and watching people and drawing people. But I always keep it in mind. Like I try to remember how that person, like an older person, sat or how his head was or the wrinkles and yeah, stuff like that. Any questions?
Maybe just something else I'll add, John.
Yep.
So if you just kind of pick up that one on your far left, the one that you've got sort of roughed in, just on the other side, on the left side of
This
the
one?
mold. Yeah. And so when I get it to that point, and with some practice, you'll get it to that point fairly quickly. But when I get it to that point, I draw in the bottom of the nose. And John, you might want to just kind of put where you think the bottom of the nose might be.
Right about there.
Okay. And so that would be the very bottom of the nose, leaving room for very kind of a slight lip down there, right?
Yeah.
And then what I would do is I'd make a line about where the eyebrows would be. Like, and when I say the eyebrows, I guess I mean like the ridge inside the eyebrows. And so, John, if you just put a line on that. Okay, so
Okay,
maybe the
I should have the
eyebrow.
nose. I should have the nose up here. Sorry.
A little bit higher. Okay.
Yeah. Now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
So it should be there someplace. Now you got
Okay,
some
and
mouth.
Yeah, okay, now you got a room for mouth, and the eyebrows maybe just a little bit lower than that, or about there, okay. And so then what I'll do is with a gouge, a small gouge, I'll run it along the side of the nose, knowing that the nose is going to be wedged up to that eyebrow, and I'll just scoop that out, maybe just make an oval, like a, if what Lynn Doughty says is you picture kind of like aviator glasses.
Mm-hmm.
You know what aviator glasses look like, right?
Yeah.
If you picture that and draw those two lobes on each side underneath the eyebrow,
Yeah.
I'll just take a gouge and I'll just scoop it out. And I'll really scoop it out. And again, I say really scoop it out because I've got myself into the position of having those flat faces before. So I tell myself I'm not going to have a flat face. It's going to be a nice face with a lot of contours. And so I'll scoop those out, those eyeglasses if you want, and all of a sudden it looks like a skull because we've got these huge eye sockets, right? Got these huge eye sockets.
Yeah.
So we can't see the thing right now, John, but if
Yeah.
if all of a sudden you're scooping out this business here, what ends up happening is you see where the eyes are going to all of a sudden go back. You see now the contour of the top of the socket, which is going to become your eyebrow, and your nose starts to wedge out too. You're not going anywhere near where the nostrils are going to be. You're much higher than that, but you're getting that whole contour. So again, if what you can get out of tonight's session on starting to carve a head is to get to the place that John's got to, that he's holding right now, and then take a gouge and start scooping that out, you'll start to see a skull there. You'll start to see the formation of a skull. And what I'd say is don't be timid. Like you look in the mirror, as John was saying, you'll see that your eye is way back into your head, way back into your head. And so scoop that out with a gouge, start seeing that skull, and you'll be way ahead on that caricature card. Okay, so there's the nose.
Yeah, just a couple cuts.
Yeah.
And
so I don't know if you have a gouge there, John, or you can just use
No.
your knife. Just use your knife to scoop. Yeah, just use your knife to. Don't cut your finger.
No.
We are being videoed.
This is how I do it. I scoop it out like this.
There you go. Yeah. So you can see what John's doing there. All of a sudden you're getting the shape of the nose. And so if you did it on the other side, he's getting the skinny part on the top. He's leaving it wide on the bottom because that's where the nostril is going to be, right?
Second, I got to pull it towards me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Then it's done.
Yeah, that's right.
It's that easy.
That's right. Okay, so there you go. So look how much that looks like a head now, right? So you now all of a sudden you've got a sense of where the mouth is going to go. You have a sense of what that nose is going to look like. John's going to make sure that when he cuts around the nostrils, they're really wide, really, really wide, right? And when he does that, some of the cheek is going to go away because you want a real wide nose. He started to do around the eyes. What I would do at this point is take that gouge and I would go deep right into the bridge of the nose. Like just think or just feel your eye and your nose right now. Like your bridge of your nose is here, your corner of your eyes is very deep, and then your eye is rounded, comes out and back in again. So right at that nose, you can take your gouge and do that aviator sunglass thing, right? You can really dig in there to make that thing look like two great big lobes. And all of a sudden it starts looking like a fence or a face rather. Now John was saying, it's a different story when you're trying to do a caricature of someone. I've only done a caricature of someone, I guess, a couple of times. It's really hard. It's really hard. Certainly not as much fun as just letting your imagination go and wherever your cuts end up, let it go with that. And so, you can see what this guy is going to already start to look like once you start getting your small gouge in there and digging that eye socket in more deeply. So, so if you can do that in the next few weeks, like you're ahead of the game, and then maybe
Yeah.
John, you can take us from there.
Yeah, we'll do the detail next time, right?
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah.
Do some detail and putting the nostrils in and putting the smile lines in and the cheeks in and carving the eyes, hairline, ears. But I think that's.
I think we should all do a caricature of Mark.
Go for it. Go for it. It'd be easy as hell.
But we don't want to have to do hair.
Yeah. Ah, there we go. There we go.
It's a low
You
blow.
can paint the beard on.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I jump in here just a moment? And one suggestion would be that it comes from what's happening in the biography group, is that the things that people are working on at the present, this last month, we put together a short PowerPoint presentation that we show in the middle of the meeting or during the meeting or end of the meeting. And it then some will comment or ask questions about what they're working on. It may well be when Mark, you suggested to go ahead and give it a try, and what John said, it would be great to see what the results are if you sent a photograph to me of what before was like when you used to do it a flat face, and when you tried John's new method of getting that wedge or that strong point at the front. It would be great to see how you're improving.
Yeah, very good. Good idea.
We'll just make the PowerPoint up for you here, but if you send the pictures to me, the before, like 20 years ago and this week.
Yeah. And when you're doing the eyebrows here, this is where the attitude, this is where it starts. Like you can see how that one eye is raised. When I'm scooping this out, I can scoop that out and have the one eyebrow raised. So when I
higher there, Tom. Yeah, push up a little higher. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, I gotta take it back because I can curve it. Give me a second here. This gives them the attitude as one eyebrow is up a little bit. It's got a bit of an attitude already.
That's good, John.
Yeah.
Okay, questions for John? Okay, that's great. Well, I think, John, you gave us something all to play with for the next few weeks, and go at it, right?
Yeah. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. You just look at Pinterest, like you were saying before, for different expressions. Like, say if you like one expression from one picture, and just take the mouth from one picture and combine it with the eyes of another picture, another photograph that you like. But when we're talking about like expression, a lot of the expression is in your eyebrows. So if I had carved an eyebrow here, or if I hid the eyebrows, you couldn't tell what his expression was. But if I had his eyebrows, if I can draw it here. I don't know if you can see that or not. But anyway, that's a lot of your expression starts at the eyebrows. If you're frowning, or if you're happy, your eyebrows show that. So you got focus on your eyebrows for a lot of your expression. If you could take photos and cover up the eyebrows, you wouldn't know what that person's thinking. You wouldn't know if he's mad or sad or happy. But you show it. You show the eyebrows. You take a look. Take your thumb away from the eyebrows. It gives you a whole new expression. So something to think about. eyebrows and expression in your eyebrows, Mark?
Yep.
That's the big feature, one of the bigger features that explains angerness. You're angry, you're sad, you're happy. So focus on that part of the head is a big part of what your carving is supposed to say. If you want to say something, is the eyebrows.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
That's great, John. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And we'll come back to that, okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to do a share screen again here. Everybody can see that chart again, I hope.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about details and finishing. So we talked a little bit about carving in details to the roughed in caricature carving last time. We're going to talk just a few minutes about the details of the base. And you know, I always say to people, the base, in my opinion, can really make or break a carving, and it really needs consideration. Generally, it runs the gamut of being a part of the story to being completely separate. So I've seen some really great caricature carvings that have a base that clearly is part of the story behind the caricature carving. And I've seen some terrific caricature carvings where they're just standalone. Somebody has done the caricature carving and you can sit in on a desktop and it stands alone, and they're both great. I enjoy doing a base, and I enjoy having the base part of the story of what's going on, rather than just a base that has been turned down on a lathe out of a nice piece of hardwood, as an example. Also, a base is really a structural aspect, both visually and mechanically. Like, you know, I always think that the caricature carvings that I do, I want them to stand the test of time. So I'm not going to put a top heavy caricature carving on a slight base. I want a heavy, broad base so that the thing is going to be stable. Okay. So very quickly then, you know, here's an example of a base that I did for a very bulky caricature, and you guys have seen this picture before of the hockey player. You know, and his arms are over the boards at the arena. The base is pretty substantial, and it's a heavy base, and it didn't throw off the carving because it's a heavy carving. This is a little bit of a slighter carving that I did of the little hound on a beach scene. So the base, I wanted it fairly thin. I didn't want the base to take away from the dog reading the newspaper and all the little interesting aspects. So I just wanted something that looked nice. It's out of oak. I routed the edge of it. I used a little mixture of glue and sawdust, and then painted that to make look like sand. But really, it's just something that centers the carving and doesn't take away from the carving. This one is it's a fairly good sized carving. I think it's about 17 or 18 inches tall. You know what? I got to let my dog in the door here before she scratches it down. Huh? He's got to be part of the party. So
dogs are always on the wrong side of the door.
Yeah, I think so. So on this one, I wanted the carving, of course, to be on rails, and so this base is actually from the rail timbers down. And so the oak part on the bottom is very small. It's probably a 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch in thickness. It's got some basswood glued to the top of it, and that's what those rails or the ties are made out of. The work in between the tiles is basswood just carved, and then I glued like an aggregate stone onto it. And so the base is substantial in terms of it being the rail line and the ties and the gravel, but it works with the story of the guy on the pump car. And then it's just finished off with a nice little oak curved section. And that to me is another important part of thinking about the base, is that if you have a rectangular or squarish looking carving like this one is, it's a pump car that's nothing more than a rectangle. I didn't really want to put another rectangle base on the bottom of it. So I put just a slight curve. It's indulated in and out on all four sides to just give it a little bit of interest. This is a base. Yeah.
If we go back to that one, sometimes in art, they've said if you're making something that has motion to it, it needs to have some place to go. So I wonder, had you thought of extending the rails in front of the cart a little more than they were behind it, or would that make a difference?
Oh, I think that's a great idea, Mike. This is not something that occurred to me at the time, but that's a terrific idea. What I did from a motion standpoint, you can see the dog's ears. So that's what really picks up the motion, and the tail of the guy's coat. You can't see it as well here, but he has a little necktie, and the necktie is blowing in the wind. The brim of his hat is back. But I think that's a terrific suggestion that you have, putting something forward of it to look like he was going somewhere. That's a great idea. And that's, again, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mike, because that's, again, something that you want to think about when you're putting a base together. Your carving really isn't finished until you've thought through the base. And I hadn't thought about that aspect. That would have been a real good addition.
Well, since it's my carving,
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, that's where Mike and I met some years ago. I don't know if I told this group that story, but Mike was judging at a show where this one was at, and we didn't know each other. And I happened to be just looking at my own carving, and he came up to me and he said, "Is this your carving?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And he said, "Oh, it's a nice carving." I said, "Oh, thanks very much." And he said, "Did you see the advertisement for the next carving show?" And I said, "No, I didn't." He said, "Oh, they have your picture on it." Yeah. But they got your name wrong. They didn't put your name with the carving. And I said, "You're kidding." I said, whose name did they put it on?" And he said, "Mine." So Mike's taken that carving ever since. So here's another very simple, this was a carving of a little hound dog on a rocking chair, and it was a very slight carving. So I wanted the base to be very slight, but to just kind of make it part of the story again. He's on a hooked rug here and on a plank floor, hardwood floor. Again, the base is very, very slight, doesn't take away from the carving, but it tells the story, right? And here's a carving that I think many of you have seen before, the little infantryman. I did the 1812 infantryman. And so again, I wanted him on something that looked like kind of 1812-ish, and that would be give him something solid to stand on. So I made cobblestone. So there he stands on cobblestone with a little bit of embellishment around the bottom. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say on bases before we started to talk about painting. Does anybody else have anything else to add on the base itself?
Okay, I'd like to say the base is like, if you're doing a bird carving, you would put the habitat. You consider the habitat of the bird or the animal. So it's the same idea as doing a caricature carving, is doing the habitat where that person would be, or carving would be, or
yeah,
it's the habitat.
Yeah,
that's all I guess.
Good. Okay, so let's talk about painting. John and I pretty much take the same approach to painting. I think Mike is pretty much in the same school, and so we'll come back to this several times. But let's start talking about painting. Okay, so I start by preparing the wood, and I prepare the wood after I've done my carving by cleaning and inspection. Cleaning is just that. So often I'll use a pencil or lead on my carving as I go. So it sometimes gets a little dirty. Certainly the carving will pick up just the oils from your hands. So you want to get that nice and clean before you try to apply your acrylic paints, or else you won't get it to adhere very well. So I take my carving to the sink, and I use a fingernail brush, and I soap up the fingernail brush, and I wet the carving and I scrub it. And some people will put the carving right underwater and scrub it right underwater. It doesn't matter. You're not going to soak it right through to the center, and it will dry clean. But I always make sure that it's very clean, and that's my time that I inspect for any errors, like if there's a burr there that I didn't see, or a particular cut that I didn't like, that's where I'm looking at it. At that point, and before I put any acrylic paints on, I apply a sealer. You can apply a sealer, or you can apply gesso, or you can do neither of those things. A sealer that I would use is nothing more than an oil-based urethane. And what I do is I'll just buy a little jar of oil-based urethane. The one I use is, the brand is Verathane. I get it at Home Depot. You can get it at any hardware store. I cut it down, by 40 or 50% with solvent, turpentine. And I apply that. It basically, once, this is after I've allowed my carving to dry from the water, it's dry. And that urethane turpentine combination soaks right into the wood, and it dries. And it makes a nice base for your acrylic colors. If there's any parts on the carving that you may have sanded or inadvertently come up with a little bit of a spot where it's kind of a fibrous, if you want, that urethane will in fact cut that away. So that urethane will harden that fuzzy hair-like piece, and then you can go back with either your knife or a very fine sandpaper and knock that off. Okay. Gesso is kind of like a thick latex paint, and artists use gesso to paint a canvas before they oil paint it, as an example. Some people, and Mike, I think you can chip in, I think bird carvers in particular might use gesso before they use their acrylic paints. I've tried it. I don't think I'd try it again, probably because I'm not good at it. I found that when I use the gesso, it in fact filled in some of the detail that I had carved in or burned in, and I was disappointed in it. Okay.
Mark, you have to put it on with a really stiff bristle brush, a pig bristle brush, and scrub it down so it doesn't fill in the detail. One of the things they say it does help, because the acrylics are semi-transparent, is the light will go through the acrylic and bounce off the white and come out, and it makes some of the colors look a little brighter. But often in caricature carving, you want people to see that it's made out of wood. So a thin coat of gesso lets you see some of the grain of the wood and things like that.
Oh, very good.
So
okay.
There's all sorts of different ways to think about it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And to your point about seeing the grain, I say apply a sealer or gesso or not. Some people don't apply anything. After they've cleaned up their carving with the nail brush and soap, let it dry. They'll just paint that so that they can see some of the grain through the wood. Other people will soak their carving in water and then paint right on the watery surface so that you get a real dilute mixture of the color on it. I prefer a sealer. I seal it with the urethane and then I paint from there. After doing that, I add acrylic colors. The acrylic colors I use aren't anything fancier than you'd see at any art store or craft shop. If you go to Michael's or something, you get the little $2 or $3 jars. I just use those colors. I try to get certainly the primary colors, and anything that looks interesting to me. I might have 3 or 4 selections of brown, 3 or 4 selections of red, that type of thing. When it's all done, when I've done everything that I'm going to describe to you here, I seal it once again with a light urethane. And I do that, although the acrylic, I'm sure, will stand the test of time. I just like to see it sealed. And the other thing I'll mention to you a little bit later is I find that when I put that light urethane coat on after I've put the acrylics on, it brightens all the colors. In fact, it almost changes the colors. They're that much more bright. Okay. So that's the way I go about it. So let's see what I've got here in terms of pictures. So here's a picture of a carving that I would have done. that would have been pretty close to ready for paint. And so in this carving, you know, I would have gone through with the nail brush and done its thing. As I look at it now, it doesn't look like I had put the urethane coat on it, because I can see a few fuzzy little fibrous pieces on his hands and elsewhere. And so I'd go back, I'd put the urethane on that. It had hardened up all those fibrous pieces. I'd either hit it again with a knife or a little bit of sandpaper, and then I'd be ready for painting. Okay, so that's what it would look like before painting. Now, John was talking earlier about carving the head, and so here's a good example of the big hole in his torso, between his shoulders, and the head I was able to position any way I wanted to. But I didn't glue it in at this point in time, because it's a heck of a lot easier to paint the inside of the shirt and paint his neck if I can keep that head away. So the head is still not glued in place. I have it positioned where I want it to be, but now I can paint the head separately, paint the inside of the collar separately, glue it in its final place. Okay. I try to use washes of what I'd call a full spectrum of colors as a base, and I try to make best use of the burning tool. So what does that mean? If I wanted to have a carving with a blue shirt, you could pick a blue and you just paint it very opaque and it'd look like a blue shirt. But that's all it would look like, is a blue shirt. If you use the full spectrum of colors, now you have a real life shirt. And so if you look at the shirt that I'm wearing as an example, you can see that it's blue certainly, but there's all different shades of blue depending on how the light is hitting all of the wrinkles, right? And so if I went through and used one shade of blue and then a little bit darker shade of blue in some of the spots, you'd really get the look of a shirt all of a sudden. So it's the notion of using a full spectrum of colors. And so here's an example of a bust that I did, a caricature bust, and that's supposed to be rawhide, okay, kind of a rawhide skin on this bust. And so you can see it's not just one color of yellow or one color of brown. You know, there's yellow ochre in there, there's an orange in there, there's a darker brown at the bottom where it almost looks like the rawhide has been wetted and it's kind of wicking upwards. Okay, so that was done by using washes of a full spectrum of colors. Okay, and so a wash isn't dipping your brush into the paint and applying it to your carving. A wash is putting that little bit of paint in the top of a Tupperware lid and adding water to it so that it is diluted, not dripping off of your brush, but it's certainly diluted. And now when I put it on, it's not going to completely cover the carving in one application. It's going to give you that tint, and now I can go to a different color, wash and put it on, and it'll darken that, and then I can go back to my first color, put it on, and by the time you put layers and layers drying in between, use your hair blower to dry in between, you put layers and layers on, you get real depth of color in what you're trying to achieve here.
Mark,
Yep.
when people come and take a look at something like that, they probably don't notice all the different colors in there, but when they look at it, they know they like it. So it's kind of a subtle thing, but very effective.
Yeah, and Mike, you know, you've done some wonderful birds, I know, and that's the way you've done that as well, right? As you do, like, how would you describe how many washes you do on one of your songbirds?
Often you do 5, 6, 7, and for one thing, the paint will settle into cracks and crevices and make it darker with more washes. But you can also go with different colors as well.
Right. Okay. So give that a try. Think of washes when you do your next carving. So here's a little hound dog that I did, and you know, as I look at this hound dog with all of the different colors of brown in there, there's absolutely no way that I would have been a good enough artist to be able to apply all of those pieces individually and have it all kind of meld together. Like look up on his nose, all of the dappled sections, right? What that was I started with a light wash. Everything got the same color, and it got several washes after drying it with the hair dryer. And then I came back with a little bit of a little darker color, and I dabbed here and there, just randomly dabbed and let it go. As Mike said, let it go into the crevices, let it drip anywhere it wanted to go, dry it. And then I got darker and darker and darker until you finally get something that looks, from a caricature standpoint, looks about as realistic as you'd want to think. You'd never be able to do that by applying each one and painting them individually in an opaque fashion. That's probably got, as Mike said, 5, 6, 7, 8 different washes, layers, giving you that effect. Okay. Here's another example of a carving that was done with washes. You can see the cowboy's vest is not just one color. There's all different kinds of colors in there. His chaps, again, are rawhide. You can see how they've been wetted and muddied at the bottom, and it's wicked up. And that, again, was done with washes. There's no way I would have been able, wouldn't have the talent to be able to blend it like that from the bottom up into the lighter rawhide. I just used over and over washes and let the paint go where it wanted to go, drying in between until I got that nice look that I was after. Okay, so think about washes. The other thing that I mentioned was use your burning tools. So here's a little hooked rug. I've done this on several carvings as part of the base. People always, are in awe how much painting went into that, but it was really, really simple because the burning tool, you can see I just made herringbone around and around with the burning tool. And then the colors were just a matter of dabbing it in those little sections and letting it flow to the valley that the wood burning tool created. It's not going to go any further than that wood burning tool. So this is an example of using the wood burning tool to get that real fine fine line that you're looking for, a fine separation between two colors. If you're like me, my hand is getting shakier by the day. And so I couldn't possibly get a fine line like I was able to get here if I hadn't used that burning tool that acted like a dam for me. So think about the different areas you're caricature carving where you can use a burning tool that'll stop the paint right there. Okay. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about using washes and the burning tool. The other thing that I've done is to use a dry brush to highlight worn and dirty sections of clothing. And so you know that like in this picture of or in this caricature rather, of the little guy carrying all of the moving items, you can look at his shirt and where his sleeve is rolled up and certainly on his shoulders, he's got a yellow shirt, but the top of the shoulders where you would expect wear, it's whitened. So there's a lighter shade of yellow there and a lighter shade, you can't see it, but lighter shade on his collar, a lighter shade on the wrinkles of his rolled up sleeve there. And that's done with dry brushing. And so what that means is I would have mixed that lighter shade of yellow with a little bit of white, and I wouldn't have put any water in it at all. I would have used just a kitchen paper towel. I would have dipped my small paintbrush into that lighter shade of yellow. And then I would have taken most of the paint off on the paper towel. And I mean most of the paint off. If you can run the brush over your hand and it leaves a little bit of paint, you haven't taken enough paint off. And then I would dry brush those areas. Now you can fan it to dry brush, or you can just put your finger behind the bristles of your paintbrush and just rub it onto the carving on the top of the shoulder. But it gives you a sense of wear. That dry brushing gives you a sense of wear. It also gives you a sense of where the clothes might be dirty. I don't have a shot of where the clothes are dirty, I don't think. Hold on. Yeah, you can't really see it here, but on a cowboy, you can imagine, the brim of his hat would be dirty where he's always handling it. The top of his collar would probably be dirty. So apply a little bit of dirt, dry brush in a little bit of dirt. Dirt is going to be brown, right? And so you get a kind of a reddish brown or a dark brown. Put a little bit on your paintbrush, take most of it off on a paper towel with the back of your finger against the bristle, just rub it along the top of the collar a little bit. You don't want to make them look too dirty, but where you think dirt would show up, and it just enhances the entire carving. It gives it another dimension again, okay? If you haven't before, add a dab of epoxy over the eyes. So I just use a 5-minute epoxy. Some people tell me that the 5-minute epoxy isn't the greatest, that the 30-minute epoxy is better, that the 5-minute epoxy can sometimes cloud over with time. I haven't seen that, but I've been told that in the past. I use a 5-minute epoxy, so a 2-part epoxy. With the end of a toothpick, just apply it to the eye. Some people just apply it to the pupil and iris of the eye. I often apply it to the whole eye. In this case, I applied it to the whole eye because I wanted to have sort of a hound's eye that's kind of glassy and watery. But it'll add a real significant interest level to your carving by putting that epoxy. With that very high gloss, when you look at your carving and walk around it, the light will shine to almost make it look like the eye is following you, okay? So you'll just get that shine depending on the light around it that just makes it look very lifelike. So if you haven't used that, try that. It'll really add to your carving. You know, while I'm on this one, you can see the little dog that's got its nose down and all the little dappled effect on its nose. Again, that is just wash after wash after wash, and it just builds up to look like that. The final thing I do before finishing the carving is I fan where dust in general where occurs. And Kevin, this might be getting to your notion of antiquing. So this is one way to antique, and the way that I've antiqued it to make it look old. So just like when you had used the dry brush method to highlight the worn sections of clothing, now you're going to use a dry brush method a second time to highlight pieces that you just want to bring a different level of interest to. Call it antiquing, call it weathering, whatever you want. But here's where you're going to take a brush that is an artist brush called a mop brush. And a mop brush looks very similar to what you may remember seeing that a woman might have used, may still use, to apply makeup, okay? It's called a mop brush. They come in fairly different, or very different sizes. I have kind of a medium size. I'd say its diameter is probably an inch at its broadest part. What I do, and in this case, you'll see I used kind of a beige color to give the antiquing. I'll take beige right out of the acrylic tube, won't add any water to it, and put it on a piece of paper or on a Tupperware lid or something. Not a Tupperware lid, a margarine lid. And then I'll put the mop brush in it, and I'll load the mop brush up with that color. And then on a paper towel, a kitchen paper towel, I'll take all that color off. And I really work to take the color off. I squeeze it and I move it around, and I use several sheets of paper, and I waste all of that paint on the paper towel. And then I'll take the mop brush and I'll actually fan it against my knuckle. And if there's anything that comes off my knuckle, I will take more paint off that mop brush. I don't want it leaving anything at all, okay? And even though I've done that, I know there's still paint on that mop paintbrush. And that's when I'll go and I'll fan over everything that you've seen here. You know, I'll fan over pretty much everything on my carving other than the face. Like, it's very seldom you see somebody with dusty face, right? So other than the face and hair, I'll fan over everything. And this is the kind of effect that you get. It just, you know, you've painted your washes on them and got some nice interest of different colors. You've applied that dry brush method to show worn areas as a second level of dimension. And now you've got a third dimension in there around this dry brushing of dust or wear. And it, you know, you can see what it looks like there. It just brings a whole different level of interest to the carving. And that can be on the body of your caricature, and it can be certainly on any structure or things that accessories that you've carved to go with your caricature carving.
Are you brushing with the cracks that you see, like that are in the carving, the picture we're seeing now, or are you going across them?
Yeah, both, I'd say. You know, like to get the edges coming out, you got to go perpendicular to it, right? But sometimes, like you know, if you look at the bottom step, this is a little dock these dogs are sitting on, and the bottom step you can see all of the carving marks. So, you know, I would have gone both ways to pick up some of those carving marks.
If you look at the head of that nail that's in the section where the little piece of board's broken out, you can see the white ring all the way around it. So the brushing has caused that outer edge of that nail to become lighter. So it's rusted, and then because people have been stepping on it or dragging stuff across it, it's lightened it up.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. Okay, so there again, you know, give that a try. You'll find that adds again a whole different dimension to your characters, and it makes your carving stand out from other carvings. Okay, the final part is finishing with a satin oil-based urethane. So after the acrylic paint has cured, you're going to want to put satin oil-based urethane on it. Now, I use the oil-based urethane. I've tried the water-based urethane and it doesn't work for me. It dries too quickly. I need to have the oil-based urethane, and it has to be satin, in my opinion. They have a gloss urethane that is far too shiny. What you are really trying to avoid is having any shine on your caricature carving, because it takes your eye away from all of the detail that you put into it. So you want a matte or a satin finish. I noticed that in the last year, Varathane has come out with a matte oil-based urethane. I haven't tried that yet, to be honest with you. And I do like the way the satin turns out. It's not glossy, but it's not flat. It's just, to me, it's a very pleasing look. So I think I'm probably going to stay with that. But be aware that there is a matte if you ever want to try that. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to describe this to you, and it's important to me that you understand it. So ask questions, because, you know, as Kevin made the point as we were starting this meeting, there's nothing worse, and we've all been in this situation where you made a beautiful carving and you're disappointed in the last hour of finishing it, you know, and we've all done that. And I've done that, certainly. And so I'm going to tell you what I've done that screwed up, and what I do to make sure that it looks nice. So I learned this method from Lynn Dowdy. From one of his videos, and I'm not sure I follow it completely the way he does it. I'm probably have changed it over the years, but it's I'll give him credit for using this method, and it works terrific. So once the acrylic paint is cured, you put a satin urethane on it. Now, how long does it take acrylic paint to cure? That's an open question.
Three weeks.
Any other ideas? How many? 2 days.
2 days.
Okay. So when you paint your bedroom with acrylic latex, and it's called scrubbable paint, it's a chemical bond. Acrylic is a chemical bond. You can scrub it, but if you scrub it after a few days to take the little kid's fingerprint off of it, you're scrubbing the paint away. Because although the paint has dried, it hasn't chemically cured yet. It hasn't hardened. And Mike's probably pretty close to 3 weeks. I heard 4 weeks, Mike. So that's something that you want to think about, because the method I'm about to tell you about here, you're going to be rubbing your carving. You're going to be wiping your carving. And if that acrylic paint isn't cured, the satin oil base that you're about to rub off is going to rub off all of the finishing that you just did. All of that weathering you did, all of that dry brushing, you're going to be rubbing that off, okay? So I can't say that I've been patient enough to wait a month to put this on, but I'm probably pretty close to 2 or 3 weeks that I let my paint cure, my acrylic paint cure before I take this step. Okay, so my paint is cured for 2 or 3 weeks. I've got my carving in front of me. I take my satin urethane with a small brush and I'll paint that satin urethane on a portion of the carving, a portion that I can kind of envelope, if you want, and separate from the rest of the carving. And I do something that I think I can manage within maybe a 10-minute period. When I put that urethane on, I let it sit on there for just minutes. I don't put it on thick, it's very thin. I put it on a very thin coat and I let it sit maybe for a minute, maybe 2 minutes tops. And then I wipe it off. And you're wiping the urethane off, and although you think you're wiping it all off, you're leaving a film of urethane on there. The reason you're wiping it off is you're wiping away anything that is going to get glossy. And so even though it's satin, it'll get glossy, especially if it's on a little bit too thick. And so you're taking one of your kitchen paper towels and you're wiping gently your carving. You're using your fingernail in crevices. You're dabbing. You're doing whatever you can to take away all of the shine that you just painted on, okay? And although you're going to think you've taken it all off, you're leaving a little bit on. Now, here's the tip that you got to understand. If you use a high quality kitchen paper towel, you're going to ruin your carving, because a high quality kitchen towel is fibrous. It's soft, right, to the touch. It's because it's multiple ply and it's made in such a way that it's soft and fluffy. Well, all that soft and fluffy is going to end up on that satin urethane when you're trying to wipe it. And that's not what you want. What you want to do is go to the dollar store or go to the grocery store and get the cheapest paper towel you possibly can buy. Not the brown stuff, the stuff you'd see in a kitchen, the white stuff, but it's 1 ply. You'll get 6 rolls for $4 or something. And you'll know because it's just got 1 ply to it, and there's nothing fancy about it at all. When you use that stuff, you'll be able to absorb all of the satin urethane off of your carving just by rocking your hand on it or gently wiping it, and you won't be leaving any of the fluff from the paper towel on your carving. Okay, really important. If you end up with too fluffy a paper towel, the more you rub to get the fluff off, the more fluff is going to be on your carving. I can tell you from experience. So don't make that mistake. All right. And so that's the secret behind it. You've done one little section in 10 minutes. Now you do the next section in 10 minutes and the next section in 10 minutes until you're complete. You know, I've said a couple times that you're rocking with your fingers, you're wiping gently. You don't want to be scrubbing it because you've done all of that acrylic painting work with the dry brushing. It's just sitting there curing. You don't want to be rubbing that off, so you're being careful with it, okay? All right, so what is that going to look like? Here's a carving that I did, nice carving. No satin urethane on it yet. Now the lighting is changed a little bit in the next picture, but you'll get the sense of what the satin urethane does. That's the same carving. Okay, now I did a little bit of highlighting around the lines in the car where, you know, you see the wood burning or panel lines or whatnot. But other than that, the red hasn't changed. But that's what satin urethane does to the color, okay? It really brings out the color of the acrylic. And so, again, give that a try. You'll see there's a nice shine to the car as an example. You can see a little bit of a shine on the end of the dog's nose. It's not a gloss shine, it's just a real pleasant shine, and that's what you're looking for, okay? That's what I believe you're looking for. If you want something more of a matte finish, try the matte satin urethane, oil-based satin urethane. I like the satin. I'm sorry, try the matte oil-based urethane if you want something a little bit more matte. I like the satin, give that a try. Okay, there's another picture of the same thing with just that to me is the right kind of gloss. Okay, guys, and that's what I wanted to share, unless you had some questions.
Yeah, I got one question. Do you ever use de-wax shellac?
No, say more about that.
Okay, I got some de-wax shellac at Lee Valley, and I mix it up myself. It just comes in crystals. And I put it on first, and it seemed to give I didn't wash mine, I just put this de-waxed shellac on, but
That sounds interesting. No, I've never tried that. Anybody else have any experience with that?
Yeah, sure. I was a woodworker long before I tried carving, and I used a lot of shellac. Shellac is actually made to be a sealer, and for anything could be put over it. So it's the best sealer you can use. So yeah, I recommend shellac for anything to seal.
Yep. And over acrylic paint, do you think it would give it a shine, or do you think it would be?
Yeah, it would have a pretty much a shine like you have there, maybe just a little more shiny.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it also is a great protected for the final coat as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, that brings up the other point is, you don't want to experiment with your nicest caricature carving. Just do something quick, put some paint on it, try these methods, and then try the shellac or try wax or try this method with the satin urethane and see what you like the best, right?
That's what I use. I use the wax.
Mm-hmm.
Wax finish.
Okay.
Mark, just a question. It's Stan Adams. You put that urethane on with a brush. What about the spray urethane?
What I found, Stan, was that I like to control the area that I was doing, so the urethane didn't set up too much, so that I didn't want to get into the position of the thing curing on me or drying on me, and all of a sudden my paper towel is dragging over the caricature carving. And so with the brush, I was able to, okay, I'm only going to do this area. The spray would have kind of sprayed in other spots and maybe got them glossy. That's the only reason I haven't used spray.
Okay.
Yeah. I find that when you're doing that wiping off business, you probably have 5 or 10 minutes, not much more beyond that. So I try to really segregate the piece out. Okay, folks, you know what? It's 8 o'clock. And so I hope you've enjoyed getting together again. We'll certainly plan another event in July. I think that the summer months, we are going to find fewer of us showing up, but let's keep working at it. As I said earlier, do a quick little thing. Doesn't have to look like anything, but just try these painting methods. Certainly pick up a block of wood and use John's process, one of John's processes of trying a head. And then when we get together again next time, we can talk about those things.
Just ask a question of everyone. If you could please go to that chat place. There's 15 of you that have signed in. We've had up to 23 tonight. 3 people have got away so far. But if you haven't already signed the chat, you click on that little word chat with a little balloon above it, right next to the word share screen. Sign your name, put your name in there, your email address, and your telephone number. That'd be much appreciated. It's a registration that way tonight. That's Mark will be getting the list shortly. After you do that, it'll help us.
Okay, folks, everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you in 4 weeks, I guess.